Ray Condambre here for Train to the End of the World, Episode 11 review. On and off a train towards the end. We finally made it to Ikebukuro in Episode 11 of Train to the End of the World. The journey took a while, but we finally made it to our destination, getting straight into the action. With Shizuru making a very cool entrance, Shizuru sends them into Ikebukuro full speed, crashing the train in the process. This approach reflects her headstrong nature and her desperation to meet Yoka. She may have a slightly better handle on her emotions now, thanks to the time she spent with the girls on their journey, but deep down she is still desperate. It also makes sense when you consider that they know they'll be facing opposition in Ikebukuro. If they had driven slowly, the enemy would have had more time to prepare, and could have done something catastrophic to the mission, like blocking the road. We get a brief view of this part of Ikebukuro, where most people seem to be owls or in owl costumes or something along those lines. This is different from all the other citizens of Ikebukuro we've seen, but I don't think we'll get anything more about this, considering how fast they move through it, and this really sets the pace for the episode. Since this is the epicenter of 7G, maybe within Ikebukuro there are various pockets where things were affected differently. So once the girls have made their entrance, we cut to Yoka with quote-unquote Pochi having a similar morning to the last one. Suddenly an alarm blares, making Pochi quote-unquote step outside. The alarm sound the anime uses is not a normal stock sound effect, at least as far as I could tell, and it sounds like higher pitch. And specifically, I thought it could just be their choice to do one that's more unique and off sounding to fit with the mess up Ikebukuro, but then when I heard Pochi's barking a little bit later, I thought it actually sounded exactly the same, just pitched up a bit. It could be possible that the alarm sounds like Pochi because that's a high pitched sound that Yoka would think of, since a lot of the state of Ikebukuro is based on her mind. And then we get to the moment we've finally been building to since the beginning of the show. So, wow, the meeting with Yoka came very fast. I was not expecting them to meet within the first 5 minutes. I love the facial expressions and character acting we got from Shizuru in this scene. Shizuru's face, when she first sees Yoka, looks fantastic. And all the mouth movement that we got when we could see that she could just barely get the first sound of Yoka's name out, and the rest of the character animation really is just fantastic. These elements are totally on point and really sell the swirling of emotions that Shizuru is going through after finally finding the person that she's been looking for this whole time. She may have been building up to this, but that does not mean she was ready. And she was not. She isn't able to get out what she knows she needs to say quick enough. So during this meeting, we get to see Yoka's powers truly in display, in action, in just looking fantastic and just looking absolutely sick and just so awesome, as you can see. So I think the connection between Yoka and 7G is that it is acting as a defense mechanism for her emotional state. It's trying to protect her from the pain she felt from the breakup. Whenever she gets inklings of her memories, her eyes and the 7G button glow, releasing her power to alter things around her. Then she goes back to acting robotic and unfeeling, such as listing out all her character traits and her backstory as if she's reading off a script. From what we've seen from her life in Ikebukuro, that basically was the situation. She was kind of just living life on autopilot, doing what she was told. Once she gets to the part of her dream, her powers kick back on because the breakup is centered around Yoka revealing her dream. Again, she almost reaches like a core memory, but the powers stop it. The girls are forced to flee back to their train and return as they're unable to get through to Yoka in time and have Buntaro's forces on their trail. So in the last episode, I brought up how it was strange for the 7G button to be in Yoka's room, and it turns out that Buntaro did not know it was there. Perhaps Yoka wanted it to be with her, and Pochi obliged in bringing it there. Notably, the button was glowing when he saw it in Yoka's room, but he did not try pressing it. We see later that pressing the button while it is glowing seemingly does nothing. This shows us that Buntaro does still have some understanding of the button in its current state, both since he was involved in its production and from being in its vicinity since the 7G incident. It's hard to know exactly what Buntaro is planning, but I think that's because he does not have a proper plan. As I've accused him of before, he's just a man desperately clinging to power without being able to risk himself. He's having people look into things, but he just does not want to lose his position more than anything else. And he's willing to tell his goons to pulverize a group of children to do it. He knows the power that 7G can give, but he also recognizes the mental cost that it put on Yoka. So he has Yoka do all the dirty work while he is the one properly in control, without properly caring for her feelings. And which is a good segue into a big character point about this episode, and that is how Buntaro and Shizuru are actually very similar people. And I think this is really the main purpose of Buntaro as a character. Both characters are selfish, with Buntaro ruining the world with 7G and not wanting to accept that reality. Shizuru ruined her friendship with Yoka, but then in her situation, she did not want to accept that. She didn't want to take the blame. They both rejected the idea of taking responsibility for their mistakes. While Shizuru did not manipulate Yoka in the same way Buntaro did, that may be how Yoka sees it. Yoka thought that she could be vulnerable with Shizuru about her dream and receive support, but she got the opposite instead. Like Buntaro, Shizuru did not take Yoka's feelings properly into account when she responded to her talking about her dream. And that betrayal is what leads to Yoka's powers activating when she starts to get emotional, which is an aspect of vulnerability. Shizuru's growth in accepting her faults is, I believe, what will allow her to appeal to Yoka, and is going to be the separation between her and Buntaro. So, moving on. So the girls get back and they talk about things through, and I absolutely love using the bitter melon as a telephone. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's hilarious, and I'm completely here for it. This is another random funny thing that the show tends to do that moves the plot forward without much logic, but I really don't think that's a bad thing here. This is a great time for some goofiness that also keeps the story moving at a quick pace. Our resident wibbly wobbly doctor gives the girls some more information, and most notably their next mission, to press the 7G button, and hopefully that will reverse things. This sends the girls into a debate about Yoka now that they can properly process everything that's happened. And then we get the return of our zombie queen, who brings the manpower needed to find and get the button. The girls first have to get through a messed up department store, which is a very cool, albeit brief, set piece. Then we get to the big climactic fight for the button with the girls and the zombies on one side and Pochi, quote unquote, and goons on the other. This conflict is solid, and I like that the button ends up not doing anything, at the very least on the surface. This keeps the tension up and keeps us guessing how things will play out. The show has been excellent at being unexpected in the best ways, so it's continuing that strong towards its ending. So in this fight with quote unquote Pochi, we get a better look at him as a character. I still hold true to my prediction that he will help them once he understands the full situation, seeing as this ends with the girls being in his custody. I really like how overwhelmed he is in the first interaction we saw when they first stormed into Ikebukuro, him not really doing anything until Yoka pushed the girls away. That detail alone humanized him a lot. That felt natural and contradictory to the stoic personality we got from him before. It also matches with his main directive of protecting her. You could say that he did not immediately recognize them as a serious threat, so he allowed Yoka to handle it until she started to be in pain. This is how someone with a caring role generally should act. And this is also another thing that shows Pochi really isn't a bad person, and that he can totally end up being on our side. We also got him saying that he's not willing to fight Pochi, which is more evidence of this. Pochi, quote unquote, knows that actual Pochi is the dog Yoka named him after, so I think he respects Pochi. And this also works with him potentially being a dog in origin, or having something along those lines. So, we end things off with Yoka and Buntaro getting away on their own train, with a platform being made in front of them, assumingly by Yoka. So, Yoka and Buntaro end up on a train parallel to the main group reaching Ikebukuro by train. The platform is made by hands, which I believe is symbolic of how Yoka is being manipulated. She is the one creating the tracks, but she has been tricked into thinking that this is the right thing to do. The hands of other people, mainly Buntaro, are guiding her forward rather than her own thoughts. The gross appearance of the tracks represents the negativity of this. They're not uniform, they're bulging in this off color, white, orange, just gross color that really just doesn't look right. One way we see the negative betrayal shown is the color opposition between both sets of trains. The Gatan Gatan gang's train is yellow, and the tracks are just a standard color, while Yoka's train is the standard color, while the tracks are yellow. The main group went on their journey by train to bring them closer to someone, Yoka, while Yoka's train is taking them further away from each other. Transportation has the capability to bring people together and pull them apart. This also ties into how trains are often used for symbolism of spiritual journeys. Yoka leaving Agano, Shizuru looking for Yoka, and Yoka now running away from Shizuru all happen by train. These are integral parts of their journey as people. And now that they're both on trains at the same time, they can both end up in the same place at the same time, which metaphorically is them understanding each other and making up. Now that Shizuru has seen Yoka and gone through her shock, I think she'll be prepared to say what she needs to say. So, in conclusion, I was surprised at the way things played out in this episode, but I don't have too much problem with it. The fast pacing makes sense considering what we got, and I assume we can expect that pacing to continue for the last episode. I do have some concerns about whether everything can be resolved well in a little over 24 minutes, but until the last episode's out, I will reserve strong judgment, as I really don't know what to expect from the finale. And that's the kind of show this is, and I like that aspect of it. You have a general idea of what's going to happen, but exactly what happens, who the heck knows? And yeah, I love that. I love that I'm going into this expecting to be wowed. So I will have faith that it will continue to stick the landing as it's been good this whole time. I've thoroughly enjoyed this show, and I will be sad to see it go. I expect some crazy action at least, like a train chase that could end up feeling like a runaway train coaster kind of thing, before the emotional resolution between our main girls. So yeah, sadly, there is just one more stop left on this crazy train ride. I really don't want it to end, but I am really excited to see the conclusion. And you will see me here next time for the finale. Thank you very much for listening.